Welcome back to DFC Books.
Today we're diving into something a bit different, aren't we? Not a standard book, but a collection of private letters.
Exactly. We're opening up the personal correspondence of Lucius Annaeus Seneca specifically. We're looking at excerpts from his moral letters to Lucilius, or the Epistulae Moralis ad Lucilium.
And these really function like, well, like 124 short, potent philosophical chapters. They weren't meant for wide publication, which is what makes them so valuable.
Right. It gives us this unvarnished look at Seneca's Stoic wisdom he earned the hard way, passed on to a friend he clearly cared about.
And our mission here really is to pull out the actionable bits. What can we, as modern learners, take from this ancient dialogue? We'll need to look closely at the people involved, the main themes. It's all about finding that path to what Seneca called the happy life.
Yeah, and understanding the dynamic is key. This isn't just abstract philosophy. It's a mentor guiding his mentee.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the stakes feel incredibly high. It's almost like he's trying to save Lucilius's soul from the pressures and temptations of imperial Rome.
So let's paint a picture of these two main characters. First, Seneca.
Seneca, yeah. He's the mentor, the guide.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the leading intellectuals of his time. But he's also deeply entangled in the, frankly, terrifying politics of Emperor Nero's court.
So his wisdom isn't just from books. It's forged in the fire of real life. Immense power, danger.
Absolutely. He's seen it all. He often uses his own experiences, sometimes almost as warnings. And he doesn't pull any punches when it comes to virtue. He's demanding.
Okay, and who's on the receiving end? Lucilius Jr. He's not just a name on a letter, is he?
Not at all. Lucilius is fascinating. He's a Roman knight, an equestrian, holding a pretty significant position, likely a procurator in Sicily, which meant real responsibility, real visibility.
So ambitious, eager.
Right, definitely. Seneca praises him for being persistent in his studies, for genuinely trying to become a better person.
Yeah.
But, and this is crucial, he's also susceptible.
To what? The usual stuff.
Yeah, the worries, the distractions, the constant pressure for status, for wealth, the things that plagued the Roman elite then and, let's be honest, plague us now. Lucilius is wrestling with it all.
Which makes him kind of the perfect student for Stoicism. He's relatable. He's us, in a way.
He really is our stand-in. Seneca is watching his progress, tailoring the advice. That's what makes these letters feel so personal, so practical. The big theme running through it all is self-mastery.
A tough road, Seneca makes clear. And interestingly, he starts not with some grand ethical declaration, but with something surprisingly basic: how to read.
It's true. Letter 2, on discursiveness and reading, tackles what sounds very much like an ancient version of, well, information overload or maybe even ADHD.
Okay, so what's the core message, the main event of that specific letter, that chapter?
Well, the central point of letter 2 is hammering home the danger of discursiveness. Seneca starts off encouragingly, acknowledging Lucilius and putting in the effort, trying to improve daily.
But there's a but.
There's a big but. He immediately flags what he sees as a huge error in ambitious minds. This constant jumping around, flitting from one thing to the next.
He says the sign of a well-ordered mind is stability, right? Being able to stay put mentally, to linger.
Precisely, to linger in one's own company, and, crucially for this letter, to linger over specific authors, specific texts. He gives that really stark warning. Reading too many authors, too many different kinds of books, makes the mind discursive and unsteady.
It's more than just reading a lot, then. It's about a lack of depth, a kind of internal restlessness.
Exactly that. When he says discursive, he means scattered. A mind that can't settle, can't consolidate what it learns. It leads to that killer line. Everywhere means nowhere.
If you're always sampling, always moving on.
You collect opinions, maybe sound smart at dinner parties, but you don't develop real wisdom. It doesn't take root.
He uses some powerful analogies to make this stick. The first one involves food.
Right, the food analogy. If food just passes straight through the stomach, it doesn't nourish the body.
Yeah.
Obvious, right? Well, the mind needs time to digest ideas, too. To break them down, absorb the philosophical nutrients into your actual character. Reading just to get to the next book, that's like intellectual purging. It feeds vanity, not the soul.
That makes sense. And then there's the analogy about medicine for a wound.
Yes, this frames philosophy as medicine for the soul, which is a core Stoic idea.
So if you keep changing the treatment...
If you keep switching your philosophical allegiance, dabbling in this today, that tomorrow, no single remedy gets a chance to actually work. You need consistent application to heal those deep spiritual wounds, fear, anxiety, unchecked ambition, whatever they are.
And the third one, The plant.
Ah, the plant that's constantly being moved. It never develops strong roots, can't draw nourishment deeply, can't bear fruit.
Then for Lucilius, living in that fast-paced Roman world.
A world obsessed with moving up, moving around physically. Seneca uses this image of rootedness to stress that internal stability is the real foundation. You have to stick with a few master thinkers, really absorb their work, let their ideas gain a firm hold in your mind.
So, letter 2 isn't just a critique, it's establishing this principle of deep assimilation. But you said Seneca also praises Lucilius.
He does. He notes Lucilius has already come out with some great souled phrases, things showing real strength and thought.
Meaning Lucilius isn't just passively receiving information, he's starting to internalize it.
Exactly. He sees real progress, a solid foundation. Lucilius needs refining, perhaps, not a complete teardown. That's why Seneca then elevates his goals, tells him what to pray for.
Which isn't wealth or status.
No, forget the fleeting external stuff. Free for a sound mind and good health, and notice the order. First for the soul, then for the body. Mental well-being comes first.
And this intense focus on personal growth immediately leads to sharing it. Seneca seems almost anxious to pass on what he knows.
He is. He says he's glad to learn so that he may teach. This is fundamental for Seneca.
It elevates Stoicism beyond just self-improvement.
Absolutely. He delivers that incredible line, "No good thing is pleasant to possess without friends to share it." He even says if wisdom came with a condition of keeping it secret, he'd refuse it.
Wow. That's a powerful statement. Wisdom is inherently communal.
For Seneca, yes. Achieving it creates a kind of moral obligation to help others find it too. It links back to the Stoic idea of cosmopolitanism, where all citizens of the world part of one community. Solitary virtue is incomplete. Philosophy is a shared resource.
Okay, so you've committed to learning, to improving yourself, maybe even sharing that wisdom. But there's a danger there, isn't there? The temptation to perform.
Oh, definitely. And Seneca tackles this directly in letter V on the philosopher's mean. The key event here is the big warning. Don't let philosophy become just a costume you wear.
This feels very relevant today, too.
Hugely relevant. He warns Lucilius, don't try to be conspicuous. Don't confuse drawing attention to yourself with actual internal improvement.
He gets really specific, listing things to avoid, like what?
Things like deliberately repellent clothing, unkempt hair, a wild beard, making a big show of scorning nice things like silver dishes or, sleeping on the floor, just to make a point.
But wait, isn't Stoicism supposed to be about austerity, about being tough? Why avoid showing it?
It's about internal toughness.
Yeah.
Seneca's concern here is practical. It's didactic. He argues this kind of outward, showy austerity is actually counterproductive.
How so?
Well, philosophy already had a bit of a reputation problem in Rome. Some people scorned it or were suspicious. If practicing philosophers make themselves look like total weirdos, completely detached from normal society.
They scare people off.
Exactly. They repel the very people they might hope to influence or improve. If you look like a bizarre hermit, people worry they'd have to imitate everything about you, sleeping on the dirt included, so they end up imitating nothing, not even the valuable mental discipline.
That's clever. So the goal is blend in outwardly.
That's the core idea the philosophers mean. Inwardly, Seneca says, we should strive to be different in all respects, constantly working on our soul. But our exterior, that should basically conform to societal norms.
Aim higher, but don't look contrary.
Precisely. Show the difference through your calm spirit, your rational actions, not your weird clothes. Compromise on appearance to get a hearing for your message of integrity.
And this idea of moderation, of avoiding extremes, applies to wealth too, not just poverty. He brings up Maecenas as a warning.
Yes, Maecenas, a huge figure, close advisor to Emperor Augustus, incredibly wealthy, famous patron of the arts. The kind of guy Lucilius might see as having made it.
The pinnacle of success?
On the surface, yes. But Seneca quotes Maecenas himself. There's thunder even on the loftiest peaks.
Meaning high status brings its own dangers.
Big dangers. Seneca suggests Maecenas was actually weakened, made effeminate is the word he uses, by his sheer good fortune. Too much success, too much public attention, it bred fear, anxiety, made him vulnerable to court politics, maybe led to self-indulgence.
The height itself creates the fear of falling.
And makes you a target. It forced Maecenas, in a way, to shorten sail morally. Seneca tells Lucilius, learn from this. Stick closer to shore. Avoid those deep waters of extreme visible success. They create instability.
Because the real goal is inner peace, and both showy poverty and terrifying wealth can jeopardize that.
Exactly. Which leads Seneca into his broader critique of greed and luxury. He sees luxury as fundamentally unnatural.
How does he trace its corrupting influence?
He describes it almost like a progressive disease. First, luxury makes us crave the superfluous things we don't need. Then, it pushes us towards things contrary to nature, things that actually harm us. And finally,
It enslaves the soul.
yes, the soul becomes a bondsman to the body's appetites. The body dictates terms, chasing fleeting pleasures, and your inner freedom is just gone.
He even connects this to a kind of fall from grace, referencing the philosopher Posidonius in the Golden Age.
Right. Posidonius had this idea of a mythical golden age, where wise rulers governed purely as a service. They used foresight, ensured everyone had what they needed, maintained harmony.
And avarice and luxury broke that.
That's Seneca's argument, using Posidonius. Greed and the pursuit of luxury shattered those original communal bonds, eventually leading to things like the exploitation inherent in the master-slave relationship of his time.
And his description of gluttony at the dinner table is pretty graphic.
It's meant to be shocking. He paints this picture of the master just gorging himself, stuffing his belly till it's stretched, then being in more pain trying to discharge it all than he was eating it,
A complete distortion of a natural function.
into this agonizing, self-inflicted burden. And while this grotesque scene unfolds, the slaves are standing there, hungry, silent, terrified of making the slightest sound, a cough, a sneeze, for fear of being punished.
It perfectly shows how luxury doesn't just corrupt the individual master, but the whole moral environment, a total breakdown of shared humanity.
And that critique of luxury naturally flows into Seneca, completely redefining wealth. He wants to flip that Roman obsession with getting more right on its head.
So what's the key shift here? Finding the real measure of enough.
Exactly. He quotes the old poet Hesiod, acknowledging it's tough to save when you have almost nothing, but then he pivots. I do not regard a man as poor if the little which remains is enough for him.
So wealth isn't about how much you have, but whether you're satisfied with what you have.
Precisely. Satisfaction is the metric, not accumulation. But then he goes even further and pulls out maybe the most radical piece of advice on wealth, and it comes from Epicurus.
Epicurus, the rival school. A Stoic quoting an Epicurean on wealth.
It's a fantastic moment. It shows Seneca's pragmatism. He's quoting Epicurus' advice to his friend Idomeneus about someone named Pythocles.
Ah, is this the famous line?
It is. If you wish to make Pythocles rich, do not add to his store of money, but subtract from his desires.
Wow, okay, why is that so significant, him using that quote?
It shows Seneca cares more about effective wisdom than philosophical labels. If a principle works, if it leads to inner freedom, it doesn't matter if it came from the Stoic porch or the Epicurean garden. He loved this subtraction idea.
He applies it more broadly too, doesn't he?
Yes, to make Pythocles honorable. Subtract from his desires, to make him happy forever. Subtract from his desires. It's a complete inversion of how we usually think about achieving things.
True wealth is self-control. Poverty, then, isn't necessarily a bad thing in this view.
It can actually be a benefit, Seneca argues. It acts like a filter for your relationships.
How so?
Poverty gets rid of the hangers-on, the people who are interested in what you had, not who you are. It reveals your true friends, the ones who love you for yourself. It simplifies things, removes the financial motive for flattery or insincerity.
That clarity about inner value must then inform how you treat others, like his views on slaves in letter XE7. He praises Lucilius for being kind to his slaves already.
He does. He says it's fitting for an educated man. But then he goes way beyond just being nice. The major event in letter XE7 is his declaration of fundamental human equality.
He rejects the whole idea of slaves as inherently inferior.
Completely. He calls them men, comrades, unpretentious friends, and maybe most powerfully, our fellow slaves.
Fellow slaves. What does he mean by that?
That's the Stoic core. He means we are all subject to fortune, to fate, to mortality, to our own passions. The external labels master and slaves are just accidents of circumstance. Underneath, we're all in the same boat, bound by the same ultimate limitations.
So the cruelty he saw was just fundamentally illogical, besides being immoral.
Deeply illogical and degrading. He reminds Lucilius of their ancestors, who he says were wiser, calling the master father of the household, pater familias, and slaves members of the household, foliars.
And they even had practices reflecting this.
Like the festival of Saturnalia, where traditionally roles were reversed and masters and slaves would eat together, a kind of temporary acknowledgement of shared humanity. For Seneca, treating everyone with dignity wasn't just good manners, it was a philosophical imperative.
And this thinking extends beyond the household. to navigating society in general.
Yes, he gives Lucilius practical advice. Follow the old wisdom, avoid stirring up hatred, jealousy, or scorn from others. Keep a low profile, essentially.
And the simplicity theme comes back here too. If you subtract desires, you're safer.
Right. If you don't crave flashy things, you don't possess things that would make you a tempting target for thieves or political enemies,
Yeah.
you don't have much booty on your person, as he puts it.
Like the poor traveler on the dangerous road.
The highwayman ignores him because there's nothing to gain. Philosophy itself becomes your protection, your protecting emblem. It's peaceful, minds its own business, and doesn't provoke envy or greed in the way that wealth or power does.
Okay, so we've covered focus, moderation, true wealth, social conduct. But if self-mastery is the goal, you eventually have to confront the biggest obstacle.
Death. Yeah. Seneca sees it as this central human problem. He observes most people are just miserable, caught between fearing death and hating the difficulties of life. As he puts it, they're unwilling to live, yet not knowing how to die.
That's a bleak assessment. Where does this wretchedness come from, according to him?
Primarily from misusing our minds. Specifically, from confusing what we imagine might happen with what's actually real. This leads to the absolute core insight of Letter Exia 3,
The famous one.
the really famous one. There are more things, Lucilius, likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality.
That hits hard. Stop borrowing trouble from the future, basically.
Stop being unhappy before the crisis even arrives. Because, as he points out, the terrible thing you're dreading might never happen, or it might be way less severe than you fear. So all that advanced worrying, pure waste, pointless suffering.
Does he give a way to tell the difference between real threats and imaginary ones?
He does. A simple test. Are you suffering right now from something present? Are you currently deprived of freedom? Is your health failing now? Are you facing immediate external harm?
If the answer is no.
Then your suffering is likely coming from future fears, from apprehensions. And these, he says, are often just based on rumor, on gossip, on things people say, which exaggerates the potential sorrow.
We react to headlines, to whispers, without checking if they're real or relevant to us.
Exactly. Truth, he says, has clear limits. But fear, based on uncertainty, that runs wild. We give our frightened minds too much license to invent disaster. We believe too quickly.
So how do you fight this tendency, this crippling fear?
Seneca's main tool here is inspiration through example. He holds up historical figures who face death and suffering with incredible courage, showing, not just telling. This is really the main event of this section on death.
Let's look at those examples. Socrates is always the big one for philosophers.
Absolutely. Socrates condemned to drink hemlock. Seneca says the poison actually ennobled him. He refused to escape prison, even when he could have. Specifically, Seneca claims, to free mankind from the fear of two most grievous things, death and imprisonment.
By facing it calmly, he showed it had no power over the virtuous soul.
Precisely. Death became just, an event, not a defeat. He mastered it by accepting it rationally.
Then there's Cato the Younger, the ultimate Stoic symbol of defiance.
Cato's story is intense. Facing Julius Caesar's total victory, knowing the republic he fought for was dead, he chose suicide. Seneca calls Cato's sword the vindicator of liberty. His death wasn't just an end, it was his final, most powerful statement.
A lesson that freedom of the soul can always be asserted, even against overwhelming power.
Yes, simply by choosing to leave the body behind. It was a vote for principle over mere biological survival.
And Musius Scaevola, that story is about sheer physical courage, isn't it?
Unbelievable physical and mental toughness. Musius, a Roman soldier, tries to assassinate an enemy king, Porsenna, fails, gets captured. To show his contempt for pain and his unbreakable resolve, he deliberately holds his right hand in a fire until it's destroyed,
punishing himself for failure.
and demonstrating to Porsenna that Romans couldn't be intimidated by torture. His courage, Seneca says, was keener than the king's cruelty. Pain is only your master if you let it be.
Wow. And finally, Scipio, Pompey's father-in-law.
Scipio provides this amazing example of composure right at the very end. Defeated in Africa, facing capture by Caesar's forces, he stabs himself on board his ship.
And his famous last words.
As he's dying, someone asks where the commander is. Scipio replies, coolly, all is well with the commander. He died in control, asserting his command over himself, even in utter defeat. Seneca sees that as a greater victory than military conquest.
So these examples show that courage isn't just battlefield bravery, it's this inner mastery over your relationship with death. But Seneca also addresses the purely philosophical arguments about death, right? He critiques Zeno in Letter LXXE2.
He does, and this is important. He pushes back against overly subtle logic. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, had this syllogism: no evil is glorious, but death is glorious. Therefore, death is no evil.
Sounds logical. Why does Seneca dismiss it?
Because it's too clever by half. He finds it intellectually neat, but practically useless when you're actually facing terror. A syllogism won't calm you down when someone's holding a knife to your throat.
You need stronger medicine.
Great weapons to strike down great monsters, as he puts it. Death isn't just a concept to be analyzed. It's a reality to be faced.
So what's Seneca's take? Is death good, bad, or something else?
He clarifies. The mere event of dying is what the Stoics call an indifferent. It's neither inherently good nor inherently bad. But how you die matters immensely. A brave death, a death met with virtue, that is glorious.
So virtue is the key. It transforms the neutral event into something honorable.
Exactly. Virtue is the only true good, and it can elevate in different things. He contrasts Cato's glorious end with what he presents as the rather pathetic end of Brutus, the assassin of Caesar, who supposedly begged for more time, pleaded to live. Seneca implies Brutus's real punishment was being forced to live without that redeeming courage.
Which brings us to the ultimate Stoic view, death as freedom.
Yes. He quotes Epicurus again, perhaps think on death, but reframes it for Lucilius as a migration to heaven.
If you learn how to die.
You unlearn how to be a slave. To fear, to fortune, to tyrants. The exit door is always open, Seneca stresses. The only thing really chaining us here is our own attachment, our love of life. Death becomes the final exam.
The moment of truth.
It reveals whether all your brave talk was just talk, just stage artifice and actors rouge, or if you genuinely cultivated that inner strength. It strips everything else away.
So all this intense preparation for death, all this focus on courage, it isn't morbid. It actually serves the goal of living a good life now.
Precisely. It clears the way. Seneca says the foundation, or maybe even the pinnacle of a sound mind, is not finding joy in useless things, and critically, not placing your happiness where external forces can mess with it.
The real work is internal. Learning how to feel joy properly.
Yes, cultivating a joy that's like a woven fabric. Resilient, not torn apart by chance events because it comes from within. And to grasp this kind of permanence, Seneca points Lucilius towards some deeper philosophy, drawing heavily on Plato.
Plato's theory of forms, or ideas. That can get pretty abstract. How does Seneca make it accessible?
He uses a really practical analogy. Imagine Seneca wants to draw a portrait of Lucilius. Lucilius himself, the real person, is the pattern, the idea that Seneca's mind uses to create the drawing.
So the idea is the perfect original blueprint.
All right, it's the eternal, unchanging form. The drawing, the physical object, is just a copy, imperfect, temporary, subject to fading or tearing. The idea is the true reality.
And Seneca connects this to the cosmos, to God.
He does. He argues the universe itself endures, not because the physical stuff is indestructible, it isn't, but because it's guided and protected by the care of God, the ultimate mind or master builder. God's providence sustains the cosmos, overcoming the inherent fragility of matter. It links the Stoic idea of an ordered universe with the Platonic concept of eternal patterns.
And does he offer a human example of living in accordance with this kind of providence?
He points to Plato himself. Plato lived to be 81, dying on his birthday, which was considered remarkable then. Seneca holds this up not just as luck, but as evidence of Plato's practical wisdom, frugal living, careful self-management, keeping appetites in check. Even the great metaphysician practiced physical discipline.
So the ultimate payoff of all this philosophical work is the soul gaining mastery over the body.
Exactly. The wise person comes to see the body almost like chains that restrict the soul's freedom. The soul naturally wants to focus on higher, eternal things.
Which leads to his definition of the highest freedom.
Yes, the ultimate reward for all the effort. What is it? It's possessing supreme power over oneself.
What does that mean in practice?
It means achieving total inner control. It means you don't fear other people, you don't fear the gods, you don't crave harmful or excessive things because you find sufficiency within. Once you reach that state,
The mind is truly free.
Seneca says all time opens up for your thought. You're not trapped by immediate worries or future fears anymore. Your soul can roam freely across vast intellectual landscapes.
And death, then, is just the final step in that liberation.
Not an ending, but a transition. The birthday of eternity, he calls it. It's the moment the heavenly part of you, the soul, separates from the earthly stuff, the body. The soul just says, essentially, I'm leaving this body here where I found it. It's the ultimate release. Hashtag hey outro.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive into Seneca's letters has given us a really practical toolkit for building inner strength. We've seen the importance of focused learning, ditching the mental clutter for deep understanding.
We've redefined true wealth as subtracting desires, not adding possessions, and found the value in moderation, in that philosopher's mean for navigating the world.
And we've tackled the biggest fear, death, head on, learning from Seneca how courage and reason can help us master our own imagination. That readiness to die is, paradoxically, the key to living freely.
Seneca makes it clear. The path of virtue isn't easy, especially at the start. But if you commit, the good you attain is permanent, something no one can take away. And death. That's just the final exam, the moment that proves whether your philosophy was real or just an act.
So we'll leave you with Seneca's challenge, rooted in that powerful insight that we suffer more in imagination than reality. The real task is telling the difference between a genuine reason for concern and just the background noise of fear, the idle rumor.
So ask yourself, thinking like Lucilius perhaps, what rumor, what apprehension are you allowing to shape your life right now? And how are you actively preparing, not just for what might happen, but for what inevitably must come?